you doing?
How's it going? How's everything? Everything's good? Are you excited?
Everything's good. I'm always excited. You know me.
Yeah,
Always.
yeah,
You
yeah,
look
yeah.
good.
It's a good
You
thing.
look good.
Yeah, well, thank you. Just shaved, lose the hat today a little bit, you know.
How far
You
are
know,
you from your competition? You know that?
prep. Well, I'm in prep. I'm always, I'm training hard every day, so we'll see. Depending how things are going further down. So we'll see. We have shows in mind, but um, for me, it's I gotta train, man. No matter what's going
I
on,
know.
I gotta find a
I do
way.
the same
So
thing. No matter
yeah,
what's going
yeah,
on, I train no matter
yeah,
what's going on. I'm always in prep. It's not like prep. Like
yeah.
I have like my off season is pre-prep. That's what
That's
I
right.
call it. So yeah, it's my
Yeah,
life.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. So
and I haven't even picked the competition yet. So we're just doing
yeah.
it for fun.
About I would say about 10 to 8 weeks out, hopefully.
Yeah,
But things may change, so I don't want to, you never know. So just hope for the best. That's all.
exactly,
So
exactly.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah, yeah,
let's start the topic of today.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So we were talking about sense of loss, right? What happened when you have a sense of loss? Usually, I think it happens a couple ways, because emotions moves. So the way when you have a sense of loss, is usually it happens because either you were angry at someone or something and you did nothing about it, and that emotions, right? That emotion travels. It goes from anger to hurt, and then hurt, and then to have a sense of loss because you've done nothing bad, or whether you did something to someone, and then it goes from hurt to guilt, and then you have a sense of loss. And this is why it's important um, to handle this. It's okay to feel that emotions right away, but don't take the message, because emotions, I like to identify it as a message your body is telling you that whatever it is you're doing, you need to take a different approach and fix that. Get the message,
Yeah.
understand what the message really is saying to you.
It's an
But
internal
oftentimes,
guiding system, really.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and then oftentimes when we don't do that, we don't take it, we don't take the message, understand what the message is really telling us, and you become helpless. And once you become helpless, then you start blaming everything else, and then you start having a sense of loss in a way. You feel like you don't have any power, and that's, unfortunately, we all been there. I've been there. I know you have. Now that we're in a different position now, like we know how to handle that. So I like to, whenever this problem come up, I approach it right away to handle that right away, and whatever I need to do and handle it. Just because we coaches doesn't mean we don't go through emotions, or else we wouldn't
Exactly.
be human, right?
Yeah.
We wouldn't be human. So um, that's how having a sense of loss happens. It's just usually something that happens.
It's so
I,
interesting that you started with that, because usually when we
yeah,
say loss, most people thinking about like they lose someone, like somebody dies, but it's not
yeah,
that. It can be loss of a job, loss of
yeah,
your health. You get retired, you have a miscarriage. I don't know. Someone you love is sick, or
right,
loss of a friendship, even. It's not
yeah,
always somebody dying.
yeah,
That was really interesting that you started actually with that.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. Well, that too, and even the example you gave. Let's say someone died. What emotion that causes you hurt, right? And
Exactly.
because you're hurt or you're angry because you lost someone, and then but that emotion, because you didn't do anything about it, you either become helpless, and then you become a sense of loss. But that's all. Anything can cause that. But the problem, and the question is, do you really lose anything? Because I don't think you ever lose nothing, because everything is in you. It's just the way to deal with it. That's the main issue. Because I don't think you ever lose anything. I think everything transforms to something else. You know what I mean?
I totally
So
agree. I totally agree
yeah,
with you. But I think we have, I was talking with one of my clients today, and he pointed out something really good. He was like, I think is one of the darkest people I've ever worked with. And when I say dark, he's really, really dark. And he
yeah,
kind of hates people. But he said something. We've been working for like 4 months now. But I
right,
think today he told me something that like really resonated with me, and that is what you're telling me right now. He said what I always say. I think we internally, there's this power stronger than us. All of us, we all are special, and we want to expand, right? The soul in us wants to expand. So what he was saying, that after 4 months telling me he hates people and humans, today he told me, I think we all humans want to be more. You're right. We all want to be more. We don't feel the loss. That's what he actually said. There is no such thing as loss. We are so much more. We are so much stronger, but we've been conditioned. And that really, you know, really hit me. And I've been thinking since morning, like, he was so right. You know, I talk it in another language as a coach and as an individual. You as a coach and an individual talk another, but we all saying the same thing. There is a power bigger than us. There is something, someone call it God, someone call it like the consciousness, because someone call it source. I call it me, like the other me, right? So we want to be more, we want to do more, but we get conditioned. And I think the loss, the same thing as you say, we don't lose anything. There's nothing to lose. But we are conditioned to look in our circumstances, not beyond them. That's why we have to deal with the grief and with the dealing with the loss.
Look, I had an auntie who was, you know, we lost a leg, and it hurt at the time. Obviously, you just lost a leg, but the way she lived her life, you would have never known she lost anything. You see what I'm saying? So she really, you know, she really never lost anything, really.
Exactly.
Just without legs, but it's just the way she lived her life. So I don't think you ever lose anything, really. You know, it's just how you deal with the emotions. Because like I said, emotion travels. You know, it goes from anger to guilt, and then this and that.
Step by step,
and then
exactly.
So you got to be able to know how to handle that. You know.
But the question is, sorry, I have to cut you here. The question is, you know, we don't lose anything. I know we don't lose it. How do you get, you know, because the moment when you're in pain, when you're in the pain of loss, and you're kind of crazy at that moment, you don't see anything. That's the only thing that, you know, you're dealing with the pain. It's pain. You're actually dealing with whatever it is pain at them initial. How do we change our state? How do we talk to ourselves? How do we work that? I want you to talk more about that for my viewers.
Well, the way to deal with that, remember what I said last time we talked, everybody have a blueprint what life is supposed to mean to them, right? But unfortunately, life never matches this blueprint. So you have to go into that someone's blueprint and find out, okay, you already have everything. You just, because it doesn't match because your blueprint is a projection, what you want life to be, right? And unfortunately, sometimes it never matches that, even though you already have it. But in your mind, it's got a totally different things. You know what the meaning of what you're looking for, and because it's not matching, it create a whole bunch of it could create a whole bunch of negative emotions, and really create a whole bunch of different combination of stress, you know, to knock you down. Even no matter how much, you could be the wealthiest person on earth, you know, seriously. And then if that blueprint doesn't match one part of your life, and that could cause problems. So to answer your question, is you have to dig. If I were to work with someone, I have to dig deeper to see what that meaning is for that person. What is your life is supposed to be? You know, you know how some people, they go up, okay, you know, you're supposed to have to go to school, get married, have 3 kids, and then live life after. And some people can just work for a company.
Expectations,
right? So those are projections. So if that doesn't work, you know, or that doesn't match that blueprint, it's gonna cause some kind of problems. So when you work with someone, you have to really dig deeper to see, what is that blueprint? What is that meaning? You know, what's the story you tell yourself about what life is supposed to be? Once you find that out, then you can say, okay, you will start wondering, because you know everybody already have that. You have everything you need. in you already. So your job is to help that person dig deeper and find that one tool that's already there so they can match the blueprint that they have, or maybe create a new blueprint. Sometimes you need to create a new version of that story that you're telling yourself. So once you do that, then that's how you're able to fix the problem. You understand? So
Yeah.
it's a steps. It's just it takes some coaching and really speak to the person to understand what life is supposed to be. Because I have a different meaning of what life is supposed to me versus what you have. You understand what I'm saying? And when you don't have that, you feel incomplete. You're not, because of that, it create, no matter where you are in life, you know what I mean? That alone can create all kind of negative emotions.
I understand. Yeah, that
Yeah.
that is too, because I think the loss, the individual, like each person go through different stages. But generally, I feel like whatever you're dealing with, first of all, there are like a lot of myths out there. First of all, when you deal with loss, whatever that loss is, your job, your marriage, your house, your retirement plan, whatever that loss is, I think one of the things that I deal with personally with my clients is that there are like 3 or 4 different things that I call it myth that I deal with, that I always try to change it in their head. First of all, most of us think if we ignore pain, it goes away.
Right.
And so I think we're talking about loss, and we're talking about when you have to let yourself grieve. And we have these stages of grief. I think it's like the 5 stages of grief was like denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and also acceptance, right?
Right.
I believe that like when you deal with the loss, personally, I don't think those 5 stages are correct. I'm not going to say, but I believe acceptance is the most important thing and the first step for anything. And in order to me, whatever loss you're dealing with, you have to just understand that pain, whatever pain that you have, is inflicted to you. And we are all entitled to our pain, because most of us, we judge ourselves and we are hard on ourselves, and we let other people do the same thing to us. But if we understand this most important thing, that pain is inflicted to you, and no one can tell you that you're not allowed to have this pain. But the moment you accept it, you come to I created this pain and suffering. So pain is inflicted to you, but suffering is optional. Suffering is the thing that keeps us, it's up to us. If we take that pain and don't deal with that pain, and just, look at that pain and touch that pain and don't deal with it, don't accept that we have to sit with that pain and fix that, in us, and go to the next step, whatever that is. If it's anger, go to, like, for example, anxiety or depression, right? But if we don't do that and we talk about our pain, that's the step that we are actually inflicting so much anxiety and so much extra pain that we don't need to, and when we understand that, I think when we understand that pain is out of our control, but suffering is our thing, then we can take the next step to deal with our loss, whatever that loss is. What do you think?
Right. Well, I agree, and you're absolutely right. And I think the way I approach problems like this is by asking questions. What is that emotion I'm feeling? What is the message behind that feeling? And it really allows you to dig deeper to find out, the answers.
What is this trying to teach me, basically?
What is the
to
message?
Teach me?
Yeah, because sometimes a loss is not really a loss. It could be a gain. Like for instance, if you were in a bad marriage, right, and then you end up getting divorced, and then you find later on, 2 years later, you find the perfect guy, or you're in the best marriage. Is that a gain or a loss? You know what I mean? So it's that's what I'm saying. So it could be, what you think is a loss could actually be a gain. That's why I don't think you never
Always,
lose anything, you know?
always. But you and I
Right,
know this. Again, in that
right,
moment is so hard. The talking process in your head, the thinking.
right.
First of all, we usually mistakenly say the worst thing in our life becomes the best thing, which I'm not. I understand what you say. I understand that
Yeah,
that loss in that moment, when 2 years later it become gain, I understand
right.
that. But going through the process, when I look back at my own life, I don't think I've lost anything. Like when I look at back,
Exactly.
even in that moment that it was happening to me, I never thought that I'm losing anything. It was
Right,
painful, but
right.
but again, it's really hard to get to the state of mind in a
Yeah.
person to be so composed, and talk to yourself. And that is the most important thing, that no matter what we're dealing with, not just loss, whatever happened to us in a day, in everyday life of ours, is everything is trying to teach us something.
Right, right. No, I agree. Obstacles are the ways. You know what I mean? So the more obstacles you face,
Exactly.
usually that's the path the way you need to go. So once you find out how to deal with it one time, so whenever a situation like this presents itself, so you know how to deal with it again. You know what I mean? So, but
Exactly.
the first time going through it is a bitch. You're right. It's just it's tough because because in the moments you're just angry, you're upset, whatever it is it's you're feeling at the moment. It's who am I to tell you you're not supposed to be angry, you're not supposed to be upset, and you're supposed to do that.
Hi,
And
Alisa.
once you get it out of your system, okay, all right, so what do I do now? Okay, so this is the problem. You have to acknowledge. Don't paint it a different color or what the problem is not really what it is. Once you start doing that, that's when you're in trouble. Accept it, but don't make it worse than what it is either.
Exactly. The same thing,
It is
pain
what it
and
is.
suffering, right? Pain and
Yeah,
suffering. Accept
yeah,
that you have pain. Don't add
yeah,
to it. Don't,
yeah,
I always tell people, don't romanticize it, because when we romanticize our pain, I've seen people, I've met people that, like, I have a client, she's been, I don't know if I told you, she had a breakup 3 years ago. She's still like, and there's one other thing, she's in depression now. Like, I had to send her to a doctor, to a psychiatrist, so
right,
she can get prescription for her depression. Because if you don't deal with your loss and with your grief, it will come to the place that there is no line between your grieving and your
right,
depression. And I know it's very stupid to say you need 1 year to grieve or 2 years to grieve. Each person are different, each situation is different. But when a person romanticize what happened to them, the suffering becomes more. But if
right,
you are very honest with yourself, I'm not talking about a loss of a loved one. When someone dies, I've been through that. I've lost people that I've loved.
right,
And no matter what, except the last one, like I lost my grandmother 6-7 months ago.
right,
And
right,
the woman who actually raised me. And I think for 16-17 years since last time I saw her, that was my horror. What's gonna happen when she dies? How am I gonna react? But when I actually heard the news, I was so calm, so cool, so put together. And in that moment, you know what I told myself? At that moment, I said, no wonder all this thing happened, because if I didn't have to go through the pain that I went through, and if all those things that happened to me like 6 months, a year before that didn't have happened, I would probably lose it. But
right.
at that moment, some people may think it's stupid, but it's not, because I don't believe that everything that happens to you is for a reason. But I feel it's way better to look at things as they are and live a better life than sit in suffering. So
Absolutely.
in that moment, instead of suffer, like, again, I was so calm that my whole family, they were freaking out for me. But when they found out that I'm like, again, I knew how to ground myself, I knew how to sit with my pain, I knew where to look even for her. And again, at that moment, I looked at it as another teaching. Like, I asked myself, what is this supposed to teach me? why am I so calm? And I did grieve, not that I didn't, I did, but it was a totally different grieving. And then at that moment, I told myself, so whatever happened got you to this moment. From now, whatever happens to you, it's taking you to another moment, to another place that is better. Like, for example, when this whole situation with coronavirus and everything happened, it was like 7 days after that, I was going to launch my business, right? And for maybe 5 minutes, my whole life was spinning around me. And then I told myself, no, you dealt with this, you dealt with this, there is a way. Calm down. So I spent 2 months when everybody were like bored. Most of people that I knew was complaining about being bored. I spent it on changing my whole business model. And now looking back, and that's a loss too, you know, right now, a lot of people are dealing with this. And I believe that the most important thing is to keep it calm and be realistic. At the same time, you are not what is around you. You're not your circumstances. That's what we do. I deal with people that daily, they tell me they can't. But when I put them in a moment, in a place that they forget their circumstances, they actually find a way, they know what to do, and they're doing it way better.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. I agree. You know, it's you know, whatever happens, you know, you can rise above that and continue make it happen. So it doesn't have to be the end of the world. You know, like I said, those are obstacles. These things happens. You know, I'm sure a lot of people were planning to do a lot of things. You know, and you know, things happens. You know, so how do you rise above that to make sure you continue taking action? You know, so you got to continue constantly taking massive action. Once you know your why are you doing this? The big why. That's
exactly why.
And have a purpose. You know, and then once you have a purpose, you know, and you just take action. You know what I mean? But as far as sense of loss, it's, you know, the best way to deal with that is to face these emotions and, you know, and find out what's you really understand what's life supposed to, what does life mean to you? You know what I mean? Because everybody has different meanings, you know, and see if it matches what the story that you tell yourself in your head, because everybody have a story. Exactly. And if it doesn't, then maybe you have to change that blueprint and create a different story to move forward, you know, because if that's what you have to do to move forward, then that's what you have to do. Exactly. You know, so we have all the tools to do all that stuff. No one's gonna do it for you. A doctor can't do it for you. I know. Yeah, no one's gonna be able to do that for you. You have to. You have to look at your mind as a computer chips. You know, it's like
exactly.
You have to hit this button to access that, to open this door, that door.
And it is, you know, it is. Our mind is a computer. Our body is a machine, and our mind is a computer. We're basically, our soul is in, our body is in a machine, right? We're machines with souls. So we can program ourselves. We can reprogram ourselves. That's right. But I have a question for you. What do you deal with? How do you respond to this that I've heard a lot, that just forget about the pain, forget about the loss, and just move on? Like, there are people who actually are very good at it too. Well, how do you deal with them? Like, when you have a client, when you have someone who's in total denial and think that they've moved on, but they haven't.
It doesn't work. A straight answer. It never works either. It doesn't work. I'm serious.
I know.
You can ignore the emotions all you want. You know how they say, they have a myth where they're saying men are not emotions. We are. Men are very emotional. So ignore it doesn't really help you, because at some point you can be having a simple conversation with a coworker, with anybody, you just blow up on them, and it has nothing to do with them. That's because so much emotion that you hold on to in the past, or something that happened, and you didn't want to face it, and you blew up on someone else's face that had nothing to do with you. It's all about you. So that's why I said, you know, hold on to it, put it in your pocket, or put it somewhere and just move on. It never works, because it's still playing somewhere in your subconscious mind. How could this happen? Why did the hell did this person do to me? why? And then the more you ask why, you're gonna get a whole bunch of response. Whatever you look for, you will find, right?
Yeah,
So you keep
exactly.
asking questions, you're gonna get a response, and then it build up and build up and build up, and then eventually, it could take one simple argument or simple things with your significant other or anybody, and you just blow up. I don't know. Have you ever, heard in a job, some guy who never have issues with anybody, and then one day he wakes up, he just start flipping out or maybe shooting everybody because he's, well, that's what I'm saying. So holding on to that shit doesn't work either. It's the worst thing to do, to be honest with you. Express it, deal with it, acknowledge it, appreciate it, and find out what the message is.
Exactly.
Period.
I was gonna go back to this. What's the message is? I think
Yeah.
generally in our life, nothing changes in our life if we don't
Right.
face it. So, for example, if you run away, like I'm making an example of myself again. Um, I don't want to. I when I got out of that life, I knew that I have to sit by myself and fix me at that moment, right? Because I knew if I don't change, I will go in another relationship and I do it again and again and again. And that's what people don't get it. When we deal with these kind of things, we have to understand the lesson, because when you learn the lesson, you know the next time you're not going to do that. The next time when
Exactly.
it happens, you know how to deal with it. And that's the only
Exactly.
way. That was a really good one. You talked about the message and learning, because our life is, we all hear that history repeats itself, because
Right.
it repeats itself because we ignore it and we don't want to learn from it. The moment,
Exactly.
if you look, even if you look at your life, just go back, because life is always understood backwards, right? So if you go back and you see the things that has repeated, it stopped when you understood why, when you faced it, and when you
Right.
learned from it. So
Right.
that's another thing. And again, I know like loss is something that we're dealing with all the time, but I believe, I personally, if I didn't deal with the loss that I had, the bigger loss that I faced, that was that of my grandmother. And again, the woman raised me. She was basically my mother.
No, very
But
connected.
yeah, and but I learned from that loss, my previous losses, and I dealt so much better, you know. So, and that gives me hope too, because I know, again, especially with people that we love, especially with our parents, with our, like, with our loved ones, right? We're gonna,
Right.
it's not a question of if, it's a question of when. So to make yourself stronger, to understand the message of each loss and each grief that you're dealing with, is really important.
Yeah, yeah, because these emotions, that's all it is. They are messages. That's it.
Yeah,
Whether you're angry, you're pissed off, you're sad, hurt, guilt, all it is a message that's it's telling your body or your mind, whatever you want to call it, and then to say, "Yo, listen, whatever path you're going right now, we need to stop. I need you to take a break. It's not working. Let's figure something out." But most people, what they do, like you said, some people they just rather go and ignore it and pretend it never happened and move on. Well,
exactly.
and majority of people would just hold on to it and build on it, and just get upset, get angry. So that emotions, once you start doing that, they start traveling. It goes, if you were angry, it goes to hurt. If it goes to hurt, it goes to guilt, and then you become sense of helpless or sense of loss, and then you have no idea what to do and how to do it, and then you carry that on for decades. It could be years, and then
Exactly.
yeah, and then everything else in your blueprint could be working. You could be very successful, have everything you need, and there's one thing in your life that doesn't match. It could bring everything down. It really
Exactly.
can. So
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, so I don't think it has nothing to do with money. Whether you think you'll be heard that expression, you have money, you'll be the most happiest person on earth. No, you can be
I've
happy
been
right
there.
now.
I've been there. No amount
Yeah,
of
you can be
money
happy
can,
right now.
no, that's the thing. I
Exactly.
think I was telling my mom today, we were talking about money and stuff, and I told her, and like, it took me years and years and years to get to the point that I truly understand that no amount of money can make a person happy. Because again, I had to go through, I learned my lesson very well. I'm not gonna even, you know, I'm not gonna even say it was hard, but I learned that. And no amount of money can make you happy if you're not truly happy with who you are.
Exactly. Look, if you ask yourself this question, like for me, there's 5 questions I made up every day to ask myself. Every morning, I read 5 questions to myself, and I come up with 2 answers for each. And throughout the day, I kept asking, I kept coming up with more answers. The way I do that, the reason I do that is to get me in a good state. You know, like it could be a question about my business. What do I need to do to become very productive today? Or what do I need to do to be a better family guy? Or whatever question you need to come up with. And once you ask those questions, then you try to come up with 2 answers or more if you can. And every day you get into the habit of asking the same questions.
Exactly.
What's going to happen? You're gonna all of a sudden your mind's going to start expanding, you know.
Exactly.
And then you're going to come up with answers. So, so one of the questions I ask people: what's an area in your life, if you want to, are you really happy about? No matter what you're going through, whether you have a sense of loss or depressed, if you take a moment to really think about that question, you're gonna find, okay, I'm really happy about this and this part. So why don't we celebrate that instead of focusing on that?
The gratitude, you know, so I get it. I do exactly the same, and then you feel the gratitude, because we usually forget. We overseas, especially when we are dealing with grief and loss, we forget everything that we have, you know. And most of us always, I'm gonna say me, I'm guilty as charged, we wait till it's too late. But you don't need pain to grow, although that is good. Pain is good for growth, but you can pain in insight, you can pain in happiness, you can grow in happiness and in insight, and you know, you can learn by joy. You don't need to wait till it's too late. And that's why I think coaching, you know, again, I will always talk about coaching and how important to have a coach, you know.
It's
always reach out, even if, you know, there are like so many YouTube videos, there's so many like programs like this that we do, right? So I always encourage everyone to seek out a coach, because coaches can see, like, even if it's not a professional coach, you know, I encourage them for a professional coach, but again, someone who can be objective with you, look at your pain, look at your growth, look at where you are and where you want to go. Always reach out to coaches. You can always find me at todayismylovestory.com, and
That's
you are at NLP
Performance Coaching. NLP,
yes.
You can reach out to me on my website as well, you know, NLPstrategiccoaching.com.
I'll put that. I actually put these videos on my YouTube, and both your website and your YouTube channel are linked there too. And I also share this video on the IGTV later. But always reach out. Thank you so much. And next week, same time, same place. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, great conversation. I enjoyed it.
Great conversation. Bye, guys. Bye. Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.